Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to be talking about Protection Warrior, how good I think they're going to be in Wrath, and just my thoughts on them as a whole, how they stack up against the other tanks. Before we get into that, if you could follow my Twitch in the description below and subscribe to YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks. All right, let's talk about the Warrior. In Wrath of the Lich King, you're going to find that a lot of the talents for your Warrior are pretty offensive, and it's really exciting because you see all these threat talents. But the big problem Warrior has in Wrath of the Lich King and the issue it has compared to other tanks is going to be its survivability. Specifically, you're lacking a damage reduction. So if I show you defensive stance reduces the damage you take by 10%. So as a base, warriors are taking 10% less damage. Problem is that's it. That's where we stop. The only other thing you can do to reduce the damage you're taking is press shield wall. Besides that, you're either relying on blocks, which are RNG, or you're pressing shield block itself, which gives you a small amount of block and increases your block rating to 100%. But again, blocks are not really big mitigation. You're really looking for something that's going to really save your life when you're taking crazy hits of damage. A warrior just does not have any damage reduction. So now we'll look at Death Knight. So what does Death Knight get? Death Knight gets Will the Necropolis. Damage that would take you below 35% health or taken while you're at 35% health is reduced by 15%. And then they also have Blade Barrier, which gives them 5% damage reduction. You might be thinking, well, what about a defensive stance? Warrior, has that? Well, they have Frost Presence, which gives them 8% damage reduction. So they have 8%, they've got 5%. And then when they're getting taken to low health, they've got an additional 15%. Now let's look at Paladin. Paladins have, I skipped right to the big one, but they have 6% damage reduction from this talent. They have 3% damage reduction from this talent. And then they've got Ardent Defender. Damage that takes you below 35% health is reduced by 20%. So same thing as DKs, except better. 20% instead of 15. And then it adds a second thing. If you were to die, you instead revive with 30% of your health. You cheat death, you don't die. Keep all your buffs and everything. Revive is a bad word there. Your death is prevented, and you go to 30% health. The amount is increased based on defense, so up to 30%. And it only happens once every 2 minutes. And just to be clear, the first part of this is arguably better than the second. The part that says the damage you take that would take you below 35% health is reduced by 20% is very, very strong. So what does this mean? What happens here is that a Death Knight and a Paladin are always going to take less damage than a warrior when it matters, when you're risking dying. And it's very, very obvious and very apparent very quickly. I'll give you an example. Right now, there's Wrath beta testing on the Wrath beta, obviously, in Extremis. In there, there's a boss called Patchwork. He does Hateful Strikes. It hits off tanks for a lot of damage. If you play Protection Warrior and you get hit by his Hateful Strike, as a Protection Warrior, there's a decent chance you die in the template gear. You pretty much can get one shot very easily by Hateful Strike. It does basically the amount of health that you have, through all your armor and everything. Just does the amount of health that you currently have based on template character, right? You barely can live sometimes, and sometimes you just get one shot and die. Now, Paladin, again, is going to take 20% less damage, so they actually don't even get close to dying. They're going to go to like 20% health from a Hateful. And again, because it's something that's happening, off on a cooldown, the healers have time to heal them back up. Death Knights, they get Hateful. Again, they're not dying. They're taking 15% less damage. So it's a very obvious case where the warrior is just going to die and the other tanks would have lived. And I can tell you firsthand, I was in a 25-man pug, Nax Remus, on the beta. I tried to play warrior, and I did die to Hateful Strikes that would not have killed the other two tanks. And that really is where you have to make your decision, because right then and there, I was like, wow, if I'm playing any other tank, we kill this boss. Or at the very least, I'm not dying to Hatefuls. I'm not the reason we're wiping if I play any other tank. And that's just something you're going to have to ask yourself if you're willing to deal with that when you play a Protection Warrior. because as long as they have enough gear and as long as they keep up as a protection warrior, if your health is not constantly dipping very low, again, your survivability compared to these other classes is going to be fine. You're going to do great. Um, you're going to be perfectly fine. Problem is, in any situation where your health is going to dip low, which, i.e., anytime you would otherwise die, both Paladin and DK have just a higher chance of living. And that's something that it doesn't seem fair because it's not really fair. The talents are not, they're not fair in terms of what gives you the best chance of living through a boss fight. Um, and so that's just the reality. Every single time you die as a prot warrior, you have to always know, think to your back of your mind, if I was playing another class, I'm probably alive right now. So if you want to play prot warrior in an environment where you're going to be overgeared, maybe you're just going to play in 10 mans, perfectly fine. The content is not going to be nearly as hard. Stuff's not going to be hitting you as hard. The numbers aren't going to be as intense. And as long as you stay on top of your gear as a prot warrior, you're not going to be constantly dipping low health, and you should be okay. But anytime the content gets hard, anytime things get challenging, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble. And a lot of the previous advantages of warrior just aren't there anymore. For example, I did mention earlier, but prot warriors have this glyph of divine plea. They take 3% reduced damage. I didn't even mention blessing of sanctuary, which reduces damage taken from sources by 3%. So basically, a lot of utility and stuff used to be like, oh, prot warrior can commanding shout. Well, now because paladin buff does not stack with battle shout, all you need is any warrior in the raid to give commanding shout. And so prot warrior is not really reliably bringing that anymore. Thunderclap is no longer something that is going to be valuable because any tank can provide the attack speed slow. You used to think a button like shield wall was very strong. Shield wall, 60% damage reduction, 5-minute cooldown. Well, as a paladin, you've got this sacred duty talent, and you've got this thing called divine protection. Three-minute cooldown, 50% DR. Wait a minute. Hold the fort. And they get a talent that makes it 2 minutes. And warriors get a talent that makes this 4 minutes. But yeah, this is a 2-minute, 50% DR. Now, as a warrior, you can use a glyph, which reduces shield wall to only prevent 40% of damage to be a 2-minute cooldown. Yeah, it's just worse. It's just worse than the paladin's move. So hold the fort. I thought we had shield. I thought we had the best defensive in the game. Well, not anymore, right? Not anymore. And then you're thinking, okay, well, last stand is pretty good, right? And over in the tree is a 3-minute cooldown, and you can get a glyph, which makes it cost or reduce the duration by 1 minute. So you're thinking, okay, 30% health. That's pretty good. 2-minute cooldown. Well, over in the Death Knight tree, they get 15% health on a 1-minute cooldown, which again increases the amount of health generated through spells and effects. So it's like half a last stand with an upside, and you can use it twice as often. It also has a really good uptime if you talent. There's a glyph that also makes it last longer. But as you're seeing, these defensives that the prot warrior has are no longer going to be super strong. A big change. Your shield block, you no longer can just block every single ability in the game. It's now a defensive and not necessarily the best one. 100% chance to block certainly is going to reduce a little bit of damage from every attack, but especially on a boss, this is not something that is going to really reduce the damage you're taking very much at all. As a prot warrior, you no longer have the big defensives. You have the highest chance of getting one shot of all the tanks because you don't have these talents that reduce the damage you take when you get low. And the real question you have to ask is, what do you bring instead? Now, I think the prot warrior is very fun. I think it's very mobile. I think it's got a lot of potential with stuff like critical block to do thorns damage. With the stuff like damage shield to do thorns damage back to attackers. You've got a lot of fun talents here around blocking in general and shield block, increasing the damage of your shield slam through shield block and also your survivability. But again, these are all things that aren't very good against bosses. And I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of exciting things you can do as a warrior against trash and in dungeons. But against bosses, it's just um, you just need to live. You just need to live, and that's going to be through stamina, right? Not stuff like shield block value and shield block rating, which I think is where the class would shine. If you get a lot of shield block rating, get a bunch of shield block value, all of a sudden you're getting more revenge procs, you're doing more damage, you're reflecting more damage back because you have higher shield block value. Lots of cool stuff there. So long story short, I think the Prot Warrior is really fun. I think it'll be fun in dungeons. I think it'll be fun in easy 10 mans. I think it'll be fun as long as you keep your gear up. It is something you can play again if you keep your gear up. But you're always going to be at a massive disadvantage if you're ever under geared for the content, if you're ever fighting a boss that hits really hard, that's really going to stress your life total, stress the healers. It's just something you got to ask yourself. I personally cannot bring myself to play a Prot Warrior in a 25-man raid because I know if I die, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wow, I'm alive right now if I play Paladin. I'm alive right now if I play DK. And that is a very bad feeling for me to know that I actually could have a very tangible negative effect on the raid by not playing the best tank option at the time. Now, again, this is not something that is always going to be the case depending on the content you're doing. If you're doing 10 mans, a lot of your risk of getting one shot goes way down. If you're going to be playing more casually, maybe doing the raid content a little bit longer after it's come out, not going to be, busting in there week one trying to kill everything. Prot Warrior can be perfectly fine. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Prot Warrior. I know a lot of people may be surprised because they just assumed I would defend Prot Warrior to the death just because I played it in TBC. But yeah, if you know anything about me, the reason I played it in TBC is because it was the most defensive tank, and I really value defensive survivability, just not dying. It's really important to me that the tank I'm playing is very tanky and is not just falling over. And that's why I liked Prot Warrior in TBC is because you had those big defensives. But now lots of classes have good defensives, and passively warriors just take more damage. It really is a shame. I really do think warriors are very fun, and it's very sad that just from talents they just take less damage. But again, you absolutely can clear all the content with a warrior. The question is, do you want to? And I will be playing a warrior as an alt. I do think they'll be very fun, but that is my full answer on how I value the Prot Warrior, how good I think they are. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.